All right, so today's episode of the podcast, I'm brewing. Oh no, and I got to turn this scale on. I'm brewing decaf coffee because it's late in the afternoon and I cannot drink caffeine after noon. But topics for today's podcast are going to be what we're doing. We're doing this big order of 200 custom mugs right now. For a company called Southwest Transit. They're giving them away to all their employees. And we've had some issues, big issues. So we're going to talk about that while we wipe logos. Because basically we put the glaze on top and then we wipe away some of the glaze to leave the logo. And we're going to talk about holiday prep, getting ready for the holidays, since that's kind of what we're doing. And hopefully if you're making stuff, that's what you're doing too, because they are coming up fast with Thanksgiving next week. And then we're going to take some questions from you guys. In the first couple episodes we did, we had questions on the YouTube channel. So that's what we're going to do. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
And I'm brewing decaf right now, and I'm making it as a pour over. So pouring over is like the most labor-intensive, specific way to make coffee. But some people say it's the best. I definitely am not a expert in pour over coffees, but I try and.
So
try
why
and
do you
get
have
better.
to weigh the water?
So all the coffees you make should have specific ratios. Like every coffee, like for example, a pour over should be 1:16. So it's like 1 is the coffee grounds to 16 parts water.
Gotcha.
So if you have like 45 grams of coffee, then you want 45 times 17.
Okay.
So that's how you're supposed to keep, and then if you make it as a French press or if you make it as an espresso, then it's slightly different.
So like the specific gravity of a glaze, kind of.
Kind of, yeah. Specific gravity of a glaze.
Look at
There's
that.
probably some cannabis equivalent.
Yes, I'm sure there is. But yeah, I don't know if we want to talk about the issues we've had, but basically the glaze we've been inlaying, we used a different kind of glaze for the logo. I'm not sure if you can really see it at all, but
Oh, this is going to be hard to see because the light's all over there.
oh yeah.
But basically, well, yeah, go ahead and just talk about it.
Yeah, just we switched over to a different. We normally use the Mako black glaze in the logos, which works very, very well. Tried out another company's black glaze, and it just did not sit very well. Basically, ran right out.
So either it was too thin and you couldn't see, or you could see right through the black, or it would drip off into the other lettering. So we ruined about 40 out of the 200. And so now we're finishing them like this instead. So just leaving a little black on the outline, which looks pretty good, I think. And it will work much better consistently.
Yeah, it was just way too streaky, and then when the first firing we did, we saw that it was really streaky, then we went back, inlaid even more, and then it just ran right out instead of having like a thicker application to it, which...
So obviously that's been super frustrating because we spent like basically a whole week making, right? Even a little more than that.
Yeah, like a whole week making and then like a whole week glazing.
And that's like, at this moment, it's like all time that we could be putting towards making other pots for Christmas and holidays and whatever. Yeah. And just these logo ones are so labor intensive anyway.
Yeah, they just take so much time to stamp the actual logo, and then like the glazing of them is like the worst. Not the worst, but the most time consuming.
Right. So
it really just came down to which glaze we picked.
Right.
Looking back at it, but...
I know, and it kind of came from like trying to shortcut it a little bit.
Yeah.
But
now we know.
Now we know. But luckily the client is really cool and okay with, we're going to mix and match, so we're not going to do them all the same. We're going to have 40 that worked out with black glaze in it, and then we're going to have 160, so there's 200 total mugs.
Yeah, so we only had to remake 40 instead of, 80?
Yeah.
Which still stinks we had to remake them, but it's better than
having to make 80.
Yeah.
So that's been frustrating. It's like a $6,000 order too. So obviously it's a big one for us. It's probably only like top 5 that we've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, all right, this coffee's done. I'm using a Kevin Kowalski soda-fired mug that I got. God, it's just terrible camera lighting work. But this is a cool mug that I got during the soda firing that we did here. Pretty sweet mug. And Kai's using, what are you using?
This is the infamous Joel Cherico mug. Is it like a Nuka and the copper, I believe is combo.
Yum.
Decaf.
Decaf, what's the point?
Right. So I guess the big order just leads us right into the holiday prep.
Yep.
This is obviously kind of delayed our holiday prep.
So this podcast is brought to you by the Jonthepotter Etsy store. We had a full Etsy shop. Kai has stuff on his Etsy shop too.
Check it out.
Yeah, basically, we just finished another project that was like the 100 candles. So we just have a bunch of holiday candles for sale at Mocha Monkey. But yeah, basically this time of year, every moment I feel like you can spend making pots, and they'll probably sell, or a lot of it'll sell at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like nothing really changes. It's just more so the production kind of ramps up. We'll do different forms like the candles, like you said, but not a ton that changes really.
No, I'm doing something new this year. I was going to do these holiday sales in the studio. So I've had like such good luck every year doing the pottery event. My epic pottery event that I do in August every year is like my biggest sale of the whole year. I sell more there than any one thing for sure. And so I figured like people must really like to come to the studio and buy stuff. And it's like, we have a lot of stuff here, but you can see a lot of this on Etsy. But a lot of other stuff is just kind of random. So, and then if we run like a gas kiln, 2 or 3 electric kilns, there's like 250 pots. So I'm just thinking like the week of those holiday sales, we just run a bunch of kilns and then clean up the pots and just put them out. And people can come check them out. So that's new this year. So that's like the first 2 weekends in December, Friday, Saturday, I'm going to open up the studio and have like open hours. Yeah, what are you thinking about for holiday stuff? You got a couple markets.
Yeah, just a couple local markets, but other than that, just upload it on Etsy. Nothing crazy. I mean, I think for here at least, the Mocha Monkey sales are like when we stock the shops, it does normally pretty well. Like that's another thing that we do.
Yeah, I would guess that pretty soon here we'll start selling at least $1,200 to $1,500 of pottery every weekend. So every Monday I'll go in, I'll be able to bring in like 20 or 30 more pots and kind of restock. Mm-hmm. We're roasting coffee this year, so I'm gonna just this morning I had someone come in and was talking to them, and we're gonna do a deal like a bundle kind of thing where you can get a coffee mug, a pound of beans, and a $10 gift card for like $50. So normally that would be like $60, so you get a little deal.
Nice.
So stuff like that, I think, in the past, I haven't thought as much about that stuff just because it's like, well, it's all going to sell anyway. So, but this year it's kind of like more thinking about how do we combine the coffee beans and the pottery.
Strategizing it a little bit more.
Strategy. What do you think of this coffee?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, I just always think it's like, what's the point of the decaf? But
well, it's because it tastes good. Yeah, the decaf process is an interesting one. They like soak the beans in the solution, and then it like connects to the caffeine and like comes out of the beans.
I was gonna say, I assumed that they just grew coffee that had been bred to just not produce any caffeine.
No, it's a after a post. That's why decaf's usually a little more expensive because they have to go through a process. But they also take the caffeine that they take out of coffee beans and then put it into like energy drinks, and so a lot of the caffeine that you see like Lotus, they say plant-based energy. Right. That's just coffee bean. I would assume coffee bean extract.
Right. So you just reuse it other places.
Right. So they can usually like make some of their money back.
Yeah.
By selling the caffeine.
So what blend is this then?
This is just decaf. So it's a dark roast, Sumatra.
Okay.
I think there's certain coffee beans from certain areas in the world that are better to be decaffeinated.
Right.
But
gotcha.
Anyway, yeah, I don't drink coffee this late in the day usually, but hey, you know, we get the podcast done when we get it done.
Getting old.
So, yeah, speaking of that.
Do we just want to jump into some questions?
Sure, yeah. Well,
Okay.
So if you guys leave questions on the YouTube channel, we'd be happy to grab them and talk about them. So feel free to do that. What's the first question, Kai?
So we had Nikki Hutch leave this is not exactly what she said, but the gist of it was going to school for ceramics versus independently learning ceramics, and kind of thought this was a good question because we both went through both of those, I think.
Yes.
So I went to school specifically for ceramics. You kind of learned it more independently.
Yeah, I know. I would be super interested to talk to you about that now, because you've kind of thought your way around this a lot. So, and people ask me this question a lot, like, what do you think of going to college? Obviously, going to college is super expensive. Like, it doesn't seem to be as vital as it once was, you know? Like, you can make a ton of money without going to college, either owning your own business or working in the trades. But for you, like, I'm curious about your thoughts about, like, was going to college. You went to college with the intention of being a ceramics major.
Yep.
And you also played baseball. So that was kind of another aspect of it for you, is that you got to play baseball. But, like, do you think that was, like, really vital for you? Like, did you need to go?
I don't think I needed to go. Like, looking back now, I definitely didn't need to, especially if I just working here. Like, I didn't.
Right. There's no college degree requirement for this position.
Yes. But, yeah, I can't really. I made a lot of connections, though, in school, so, like, that definitely helps. If there's those intangibles that you can't really quantify.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it's like, just like the trades, you could go to school and work after 2 years of school, and then you're done. Like, I could have theoretically just worked here right after high school. If I knew that was an option or knew I wanted to do that. But, yeah, it was also good just, like, having the facility and the materials there for me to kind of learn, where necessarily wouldn't have that here.
Right.
Having, a gas kiln, a raku kiln, all the glaze materials, like that's how I got into the mixing up glazes,
right,
testing stuff like that.
Which we do have all that stuff now.
Yeah, now we do, right. So, I mean, yeah, it's definitely didn't need to, but it didn't hurt at all either. Besides student loans, I suppose, but
yeah, it's interesting because neither of us, like, obviously I didn't need to have a college degree to go, like, buy a business and then run a business, but it didn't hurt. I took accounting classes and I made some connections, and for me, like, I would never have gotten into pottery if I didn't go to college. So that was, and I met my wife. You met your future wife,
right? Yeah.
So the intangibles of, like, yeah, maybe it wasn't totally necessary, but still a part of your journey.
Yeah, exactly.
To lead you where you went. But yeah, if you're a 18-year-old right now, and it's like, do you go spend $40,000 a year to go to art school, or do you go pursue a career as an artist?
Yeah,
on your own? What's the answer?
Just being at the high school yesterday, my old high school teacher had a student that she didn't want to go to college, so she went on. She's apprenticing at Maine Prairie now.
Oh,
so
nice.
Like, kind of exactly what we're talking about. She just realized she didn't want to go to college, have the student loans, but she still wanted to work in the arts or pottery, so she just went and found an apprenticeship.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to make a lot of sense to me. Like, if you, instead of committing to, like, a 4-year degree where you might, take out $100,000, whatever, in loans, like, if you can go get what you want out of it, like an apprenticeship, even if you have to, like, do it unpaid for a little bit, it's still, you're not paying to do it, like you are at college.
Well, I feel like we've had a lot of conversation here too, where it's like, I learned so much more working here and then starting my own business than I ever did at school. Right. Like, you have so much more real world knowledge.
Well, there's just, like, when you're in a classroom setting, there's only so far that can take you before you just have to, like, do it, you know? So, like, going back to, like, just starting a business,
Yeah.
That one comment about, that was nice to hear about your business, but just do it isn't really going to help. But in reality, like doing it is how you learn. You
Yeah,
know?
like that. I didn't learn anything from business classes. Like I had a business minor, and I feel like I didn't learn anything. Like
I know.
had professors who, not their fault, but they've just been in the educational world their whole time, teaching entrepreneurship classes where it's way
like-
better, in my opinion, to learn from an actual entrepreneur rather than someone who can teach a curriculum about it.
Right. Well, and like there's so many, and I did business classes and entrepreneurship classes. And like when you read in a textbook, those are all just like theories.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
like it's like, and that's interesting to learn about case studies and stuff. But like in the reality, like businesses are so different.
Yeah.
Like learning about a case study about Apple or whatever has really little to nothing to do with how I run a business, you know, that's 2-3 coffee shops and a pot. Like, so that's the other thing is you got to like find your niche and then really learn about that instead of like you can go online and learn how to be a YouTuber or how to expand your influence online or whatever way more than you could learn from going to a social media class at college or whatever. And maybe that's not true anymore. Like maybe they're figuring that out. And they're using the resource, the free, but that's the thing is there's so many free resources out there
Right.
that make, why would you go spend so much money to go to college when if you're motivated and can learn,
Right.
obviously college isn't a bad thing, but like, is it worth the money?
It's not worth it to everybody. Certain people, obviously, yes. Like most.
Right. Like if you want to go be a doctor or a lawyer or some specific.
There's fields you need your degree for, but there's also a lot of fields that you don't. Like you don't need to go to school for fine arts.
Right.
Unless you have a specific plan for that.
Yeah, which would be like going to grad school if you want to like be a professor or.
For sure. Yeah. So just all about your situation, I feel like. But like you just learned kind of on your own, like the ceramics world.
Right. Yes.
Like you didn't go to school.
No, I went to school
for it.
Right.
But you learned about it there.
Exactly. I kind of learned that about myself there, that I wanted to do that. You know, it was less about learning ceramics and more about learning like, oh, I actually really like doing this.
Yeah.
And it's something I want to keep pursuing and doing.
So yeah, I guess it doesn't really matter which route you go as long as you kind of research and know.
But just know that if you
want.
do go the college route, that is like an expensive way to try something, you know?
For sure.
Like if and it may not be necessary. Like an apprenticeship might be the better route, or like just figuring out a way to pursue it or online school. Like we have a bunch of people that work at Mocha Monkey that do, you know, part-time online school and part-time working at Mocha. And then sometimes they realize they don't really want to do that, and
yeah, just all real world. Just kind of.
At some point you got to jump in. Yeah.
You got to do it.
What's the next question?
Next question is from FFSS60. They were questioning how much inventory you need to have for shows and or to sell online. So I think you could maybe talk a little bit about what your theories are for selling in person and versus online, inventory-wise.
Well, over the years, like, I found that selling online was really effective after you gained a following, right? So after people knew who you were online, either through social media, email list, website, social media, whatever, then selling came fairly simply and easily. But like there's so many people out there that just hate Etsy because they put stuff on Etsy and they expect it to sell when they, you know, there's just too many things on Etsy.
Yeah, you need something to get you there.
Right. Like you need to be responsible for getting people to the Etsy shop or to your Square site or Shopify or whatever it is, you know? Like you're responsible for, that's marketing basically is what marketing is. So I guess that was my theory. And so I started building my following online by putting out YouTube videos, which was huge, by creating social media stuff, doing interesting things, just having people start following me. And then, you know, the first time I posted pots online, they sold right away, and the rest is history. Now, you know, I don't do as much online anymore, and this industry's changed a little bit. But as far as selling in person, you know, I've sold at the coffee shop for years, and just in the last like year, it's really I've had this theory that if I have more, I'll sell more, right? So keeping it really stocked, having more shelves is kind of been the focus for the last year, and it's proven to be very, successful in terms of like, what did I say last time? How much we were up, like 70% or something. So the pottery sales at Mocha Monkey were up 70% from last year.
And do you think that's just giving people more options?
I think it's, we really went all in on one location in the past where we only had a lot of pottery at one store, but we made a big shelf for St. Bonnie, so we put more pots there, and then we opened another location in Carver, which has pots there, so we sell pots there. So I think, yes, both keeping the shelves stocked more with stuff that I know is probably going to sell, like mugs, and then also just having more pots available at all the locations too. Has proven to be, and that's not always the case. Like, I don't think at the pottery event this year, like, I don't think if we would have had twice as many pots, we would have sold much more.
Right.
Because we have so many pots there anyway, But I think consistently at the coffee shops, just like the word of mouth of people being like, oh, and every time someone wants to come in and get a Minnesota mug, like maybe 3 years ago, someone came in sometimes to find a Minnesota mug and I didn't have any, because I might have been like a month there, I didn't make them. But now it's like, if they come in and want a Minnesota mug, there will be a Minnesota mug there for them. And there will be options, right?
So yeah, just having a variety for people to choose from.
Yep.
Form, color, everything.
Right. And that's obviously with so many different forms and colors that we do, it's not easy to try and do that, but.
Right. So then what about the pottery event and the Art Wander, the two in-person events that you do?
Yep.
So
Plus now the holiday sales.
Yes, plus the holiday sale. So what's your inventory strategy for that?
Well, the inventory strategy for the pottery event was, I think 2 years ago I maybe made notes afterwards about what sold well, what didn't sell well, and then I tried to make that this year, and then we did the same thing this year. Like, after it was over, we went through, looked at the register and said, we sold 8 chip and dips and, 20 planters. And then we kind of highlighted, like, what are the things that sold well? What were the glazes that sold well? So then next year I'll kind of look back at that. And even like for the holidays, I'll probably look at that and see and then I'll make kind of a wish inventory list going into it. And that's what we go for, right? Like we want this many bowls, we want this many vases, bud vases, planters, spoon rests, coasters, all the stuff. We just make a list and go crazy with how it is.
So you were touching on what the popular items were, so that helps drive sales, but then also how much overall of stuff do you, like, what's your goal with that?
Like how much for the pottery event?
Yeah.
Well, I think I had 1,000 was my goal this time, right? Is that what I said? And we had like I can't even remember what the number was.
So your goal is just to have as much as you can possibly have.
Kind of. Yeah. Kind of. I mean, that's like, I don't want to just like, obviously if we wanted the most pots possible, then we would just make 10,000 cups, right? So I want a variety, like variety is the priority, and this next priority is basically as much as possible of that. And that may change. That's just my theory so far, because in my history, I feel like I've never actually had enough pots, right? Like at the end of the year, I don't look back and be like, man, I got 2,000 pots left over that we didn't sell. Every year it's like, well, we pretty much sold everything we had. So I've never gotten to that point yet where I felt like we have, we're getting there. We're close. Mochas are all stocked right now. The Etsy store is really stocked. But and then again, we're headed right into that season where it just, a week goes by and I can all of a sudden be like, oh, shoot, we need more pots, And it's not as simple as just cranking out more pots. It takes 2-3 weeks before they're going to be done. So
yeah. So then with Etsy, what's your goal as far as what you upload, how much?
Yeah, the Etsy's always been kind of like about 100 a month. That's kind of been the goal, is I try and do one restock a month. Or it's usually the first Sunday of the month, and then it's like pick out the 100 best or the 100 most interesting, because the Etsy store is where I charge the most. So it's like the best pots go to Etsy first, And then after that, it's like the rest can go to Mocha Monkey or trickle down to like sometimes I'll run, there's 25% off pots on the Etsy shop right now. So that's my theory about Etsy. And that has changed over time because there was a time when we put, 100 pots up and I was pretty sure most of them were going to sell. And now I put 100 pots up and I think, we'll get 20, 25 sales in the first day and then they'll kind of trickle in over the next few weeks.
Yeah, because that was a big thing. You would take down your pots after a certain amount of time.
Right.
So why did you do that versus keeping them up?
Well, I supply and demand, like I thought, for a while dealing with the inventory at Mocha Monkey versus the inventory online, so I would, if it didn't sell on Etsy in the first few weeks, then I would kind of take it down and bring it to Mocha Monkey so that I could keep Mocha Monkey stocked. But now that Mocha Monkey's pretty stocked and the Etsy store is stocked, and it's like, let's just leave it up. So kind of, I'm just always like testing out theories in terms of if I have it up for a longer period of time, will it sell? If I mark it down after a certain amount of time, will it sell? I've been less active online, so the YouTube videos haven't been coming out as frequently. So that I think has hurt the sales. Like if I would have kept that going, I think we'd still, people just, when you're not at the forefront of their, they don't remember about me having pots for sale if they're not watching me make videos every week or whatever. So that's, I've just been preoccupied with other things and it's all about opportunity cost, right? Like even though I give off a few sales online because I'm not making YouTube videos as much, well, I've been really focused on Mocha Monkey and roasting and doing other stuff. So it's like, which I feel like has a lot of opportunity there. And sure, the YouTube channel is always there if I want to go back to it, but which we're doing right now. We're putting this up on YouTube. So here we go. We're working on the YouTube channel. But yeah, what do you think? What's your opinion about all that?
Well, I mean, I'm in a completely different situation where I will only have maybe a max of 200 pots at a time just because I have more limited time and resources when it comes to that stuff.
Right.
So, yeah, it'll only be, like, my Etsy shop, I'll put everything I have up. When I go to shows, I'll just bring everything I have with me, just because it's not too much, and might as well just bring it all.
Right.
But it'd be different if I get to the point where I'm making more than I can turn around, then I'm building up more and more inventory, then deciding what to bring with, what not to, but not at that point yet.
Well, yeah, and back to that question, I think that highlights exactly what she's asking is how do you approach inventory for shows and online? And I think it can range heavily depending on where you are both in how many followers you have online and if you're able to maximize that audience. And like if you have some place to sell and where you're selling, if you're talking about art shows and art fairs, I mean, if you only have 10 pieces and you bring 10 pieces and you sell 3, well, that was probably pretty good. You sold 30% of your inventory. But if you have 100 and you sell 30, then that's, the same thing basically.
Yeah, I mean, you can, like, I bring everything and it's just all out at shows, but some people will bring 500 to 1,000 pieces and they'll just have boxes in the back fully stocked. So whenever something sells, they'll just restock it.
Yep.
Just whenever.
And online, I mean, you can have as little as one piece and put it online.
Right.
So it's not like you need to wait until you have a certain amount of
Yeah,
inventory.
online is like the least daunting thing. You just post whatever you have and see what happens, kind of thing.
So like when you do this market on November 30th, which is next weekend, will you take all those pots down on Etsy to bring
Probably,
them to
yeah. I'll probably just pause the Etsy shop and then whatever sells, I'll take down off Etsy, and then whatever still there, we'll just resume the listing. So, I mean, yeah, that's another reason why I don't have Etsy listings a ton is because it's hard to juggle what you have in person versus online.
Right.
Not selling something twice or losing track of your inventory. So that's why I only do it once a year, because I am doing in-person shows most of the other time. So
you're only doing one Etsy restock per year.
that's what it's been for lately, yeah.
What do you think about, so you don't have a website. Would you ever have a website? We're redesigning Mocha Monkey's website right now. It should be live like early December. And I'm hopeful it's on Shopify. and I'm hopeful that we can really generate a whole new business, like a whole new fourth store selling coffee beans. Anyway, Matthew Kelly always tells me I should get off of Etsy and get my own website because you save so much money in fees.
Yeah.
You seem like someone that could figure out how to make their own website.
Yeah, I mean, just kind of balancing whatever the fees are on Etsy versus you're probably going to have to pay your whatever domain.
Sure. Yep. That is true. I mean, it's not inexpensive to run your own website.
Yeah,
And like Shopify has monthly fees.
Yeah, I've looked into it before. It's just I think if you're to the point where, from what I've researched and know, like if you're getting to the point where you're getting hit hard on the fees on Etsy, like it might make sense to do that. But for someone like myself, like it might not make sense to pay for a domain, website or domain, and then pay that monthly if I'm not going to be uploading pots every month.
Right. You're only doing what Etsy restock a year.
So it might not make the most sense for me, but if you're like in your situation, it might make sense for you.
I think it would definitely make sense for me. I just again, it's not a priority, and I got a lot of other opportunities I'm chasing. So switching off to a new website just seems like not something I want to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, the idea seems cool though. You can have everything there, like your bio and just more
the email
stuff.
list. I think the email list is one of the most, what would you say? Important factors of why you would get off of Etsy is because Etsy, you don't own those customers. You know,
Right.
They're not your customers. They're Etsy's customers. You don't have their contact information. But if you have your own website, then you do. Those are your customers.
Right.
You know, you can reach back out to them. You can have them on a list.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it makes sense for probably someone like you, but smaller people, it might not. Like, Etsy might just be a good launching platform for smaller people.
Right.
Try it out, test the waters.
Right. Well, yeah, Etsy's definitely the easiest way to just get started selling. Anybody can do it, but it's also, for that reason, it's super saturated.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of people on
You're
there.
competing with millions and millions of other things that are probably just as good as yours or maybe better.
Yeah, but
And lower price too.
Right. But then you're also on that platform where people can find you, where if you're on your own website, then
Right.
you might
it's
not
really
necessarily.
hard.
Random people might find you on Etsy just by searching on Etsy, whereas
Do you think
trying
that
to find
happens?
your website.
Like, do you think you've been found by random people on Etsy?
Probably.
You think so?
Maybe.
Like, you
I
don't
don't
think
know.
that people are all finding you on Instagram and then going to Etsy and purchasing? Because I have a
don't know.
sense that I never get found by anybody on Etsy, and
Yeah.
literally everyone comes from Instagram or YouTube or TikTok or
Right.
Mocha Monkey sends them there somehow. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I guess I don't know.
But I could be wrong.
Interesting. Yeah, I could definitely be wrong about all the websites and all that stuff, but that's just my initial thoughts on that. All right. Well, this last question you can maybe just touch on this really quick.
Last question.
Just goes back to what one of the last you talked about it earlier. That's what I was trying to say. Did the YouTube channel help launch your pottery to popularity and therefore sell more? And that's from Violet Light 8138.
Yes. So exactly what I talked about before.
Yeah.
The YouTube channel was like my launching point into selling and posting pottery online, right? Before I had a YouTube channel, if you were trying to search me online, you never would have known I made pottery. Like, all I did was make pots to sell at the coffee shop. So then when I was like, I think I want to make a run at, making this more of a full-time business on its own, I need to get followers online. That's when I started the YouTube channel. So yes, the YouTube channel certainly was that. If it wasn't for the YouTube channel, you wouldn't have a job here. I wouldn't have this nice studio. Like, I wouldn't have these nice wheels and this fancy light and this fancy camera. And like, all of this is because I started the YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Now, no, that's it, period.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, the
But
YouTube
all
channel.
this goes back to funneling people into buying your stuff.
For sure.
Like, that's the route you chose to.
That was the route that I felt had the most gap, that I could add something that wasn't already there. Whereas it's really hard to find that it's just really hard to find that on social media. Like, Like, I felt strongly like I can learn video editing. People will be interested in my story. I'm comfortable on camera. Like, whatever. I'm just going to try it, you know? And then it just kind of started taking off. And I really have not, you know, like, I've not continued it, but hopefully this kind of continues it, you know, this
Right.
podcast. And maybe eventually, come January, once we get all these stupid mugs done,
Yeah.
then can start making other fun pots again, and then we can maybe focus on making fun YouTube videos in 2025 in January, which I think is the goal, and I think we will.
Agreed. Well, should we call it?
Yeah, let's call it. That's it for this podcast. Thank you guys for listening, watching, whatever you're doing. This is what we're doing for the next hour. Hopefully we get them done. We'll get a kiln loaded today. And see you guys in the next one.
See you.
Peace.